Hi my lovelies and welcome back to my channel. So I just tried 10 concealers from medium to full coverage, mainstream to luxury brands to try and find the best concealer, mainly for mature skin, because the struggle to find ones that give enough coverage and hydration without creasing is real. Some of these concealers are cruelty-free and some aren't, so I will let you know as we go which are and aren't, how good the color match was, how easy they were to apply and blend, how good the coverage was, how much or how little they creased, how well they lasted through the day, and whether they did what they said they did. Because I feel like a lot of concealers say they're hydrating and are actually drying. I feel like some say they're crease-free and crease, some go blotchy, some start to separate. It's so hard to find a good concealer. In your 20s, yeah, it's pretty easy. You can go heavy-handed, you can throw it on, it looks brightening, it looks great. When you get to your mid-40s, it's not so easy. It definitely becomes more of a struggle, especially if you're using retinols and have a dry under-eye area, or if you just have more crepey skin and fine lines like I do. The concealer likes to sit in those creases. And it's not just about baking the makeup really well, how well you powder, because you can bake like a pro and it will still crease if the formulation or primer is not right. Throughout this review, to make it very fair, I did do the same skincare and application the whole way through, starting with the same serum, moisturizer, and eye cream, using the same concealer brush and damp beauty blender, and then using the same setting powder afterwards and setting spray. So it was a very, very fair comparison. Sometimes the light might be different. The sun changes throughout the year. I'm using the same beauty ring the whole time, so I apologize if it's not absolutely perfect. So let's start with the first one. The Yves Saint Laurent concealer is available in 18 shades and is fragrance-free but not cruelty-free. It's a lightweight, creamy, creaseless, or so they say, full coverage concealer. They also claim it provides up to 24 hours wear and hydration. Now, you can't tell from the sample, but the actual full-size concealer has a unique, precise, angled applicator to help spot conceal, sculpt, and seamlessly enhance your features. This formula is also packed with skincare active to help skin look smoother, softer, and firmer. And I'm going to bake and set all of these concealers the exact same way as well. So all of the testing is very fair. So I am just using a loose powder here on a triangle sponge just to really buff everything in. And that's the final look. What I like about this Saint Laurent concealer is the color match. I thought that was really good. I also thought it was really easy to apply and blend in. What I'm not liking is it doesn't feel hydrating. It feels quite drying and it's already starting to crease even though it's been less than 10 minutes that I've had it on. So the Saint Laurent concealer lasted pretty well. It didn't crease any more than it already had, but it already creased quite a lot to be fair, but the color stayed true. It's not one I would be rebuying. So we are on to Gucci's. This is the multi-use long-wear concealer buildable coverage. It's supposed to be lightweight and it's supposed to have a flexible texture, which means it should crease less. So let's give this a go. I have a few different colors. I'm gonna go straight to the lightest one. I just like a really bright under eye area. I'm not talking pan dry, but just nice and bright. So the shade I'm going to use is 16C. And I can already see it's a really nice kind of runny consistency. It's quite thin. So I like that because it's going to be buildable, not too cakey. And let's see how it blends in. That color is beautiful as well. That's a really nice kind of yellowy concealer rather than being too pink. I don't like pink concealers on my skin tone. And that has brightened really nicely. It's blending very, very quickly, very, very easily. Right now it doesn't look like it's creasing, so let's do the other eye. I tend to put more concealer on the inner corner of my eye because that's where you can see the most discoloration. Okay, I don't even know if we need a second coat. That's looking quite nice and bright. I'm just going to do a tiny bit more on the inner eye. You can see how runny it is, it's running everywhere. And so far, it really hasn't creased like the YSL one did. Just a tiny, tiny bit more. One thing I learned from a makeup artist with more mature skin is just to build it very, very slowly and then don't set it until it's dry, because if you start trying to set a wet concealer, it's going to create, if you think of like dough, it creates a kind of cakey consistency that we don't really want. Okay, I think that's really, really lovely. It was really nice to work with as well. Okay, let me finish my makeup and get back to you. The Gucci concealer didn't crease anymore during doing the rest of my makeup. The powder plays really nicely with it and it's just creating a really brightening effect without creating that cakiness you sometimes get with some of the other thicker concealers. So far, I prefer this to the Saint Laurent. Sorry, I totally forgot to do the wear test on this, but it did wear beautifully. It didn't crease. The color stayed true. The only thing with this one though, it is a lovely concealer, but it's not cruelty free. Okay, so I'm going to do Tarte Creaseless Concealer because this one has a really good reputation for being really good. Obviously, as the name says, for not creasing. I have a few different colors on here, but I'm going to go with this top one. It's 10N Fair. As you know from all of these, I've been going with the lightest color. So fair is fair, and we like that brightening. I did just tan this morning, so I am a little bit more tan than normal, but this is the color of that 10N Fair, which looks like it's going to be a good match. And base wise, I'm doing the same skincare routine before applying this concealer every day, so it's a fair match to all of them. So I have my eye cream, I have my serum, moisturizer and SPF, and I'm just going to dot this on. I'm applying it the same way each day as well, so we can really try and be apples to apples. Same lighting, you know the drill, all the rest of it. And then I'm going in with that damp beauty blender, and this is blending in really nice and quickly. I do tend to take my concealer across my eyelids as well, just to create somewhat of a base and get rid of some of the redness and discoloration for the eyeshadow to go on too. And I feel like that has creased the least out of all of the ones I've tried so far. I'm gonna go in a little bit heavier on those inner corners like I did with the other ones as well, just to really try and get rid of that bluey green right there. That's lovely. We've been up at night with one of our cats who's terminally ill. He has lymphoma, and he only really eats at night, and he'll just nibble. So we're up about 7 times a night right now. So mums, respect to you. Like, getting up all the night with newborns is no joke. So I kind of know what you feel like right now. So these concealers are much needed at the moment. That is it with this concealer, just applying it with the damp beauty blender. Let me finish off my makeup, put setting powder on the top, and see how it settles down, if it creases or not. I'm really happy with that Tarte concealer. It hasn't creased. Obviously, it's going to go in the fine lines. It's impossible. It's not a miracle cure. It's not going to suddenly get rid of your fine lines and wrinkles, but it didn't crease. The color works really well. The powder went really nicely over the top, and I have used this one before, so I know it lasts really, really well as well. It doesn't start creasing more throughout the day, as long as you do use your powder and you do use your setting spray. And then it should last, I say 16 hours. I have not put it to the test that long, but it does last me a good 8 to 12 hour day. Okay, on to Makeup Forever HD Skin Concealer. I have tried this one before. I've loved it in the past. It's not one I've come back to just because I'm always trying so many new products for you. At the moment, I've been using Dior's concealer for about a year now. They last such a long time because they are big. That's the size of them. A little goes a long way. So I don't need to buy any more concealer right now, but I do have all these samples. I'm going to go in with the lightest color in the samples I have, which is their 1.4Y. So there's quite a few in there. I mean, they have so many different ones in their collection, but these are the 4 I've got the sample of, if I can get them open. And this concealer is quite a runny one, so it's very easy to use a very small application and build up coverage. As I've got older, I've used less and less concealer and kind of done it in layers rather than putting on a ton and then it creases and all the rest of it. I can add, it's harder to take away. So that's obviously not enough, but that's all I'm going to keep doing till I have the coverage I want. And then I tend to go heavier, you see where that blue discolored area is, versus the areas that don't have as much discoloration. And this is just a damp beauty blender, which I think we all know about and use right now. Let me know if you have another way of applying concealer that you prefer to use. I know some people like using their fingers because of your body temperature helping it to get warmer and melt into the skin, but I used to use my fingers, now I'm more of a brush girly. So it's not a really dramatic, heavyweight, thick, cakey concealer, even after a few layers. This is the eye with, this is the eye without. So it's not dramatic, but it's very easy buildable coverage. So let me just do the other eye to even things out. And then I'm going to finish off my makeup, show you the finished result, and then kind of let you know at the end of the day how it lasted. Okay, my cat just got in the sink beneath me. What are you doing? This is the one with lymphoma. If you follow my channel, my cats are always all over them. But the newest habit is drinking water out of the sink. So I'm just gonna leave him there to do his thing. This isn't giving me as much coverage as I was hoping, and I've done quite a few layers now. But in saying that, it's not creasing, and I kind of like that really natural look because I'm not going to do a lot of makeup today. I'm going to show it to you with a few different lighting settings before I powder it, just so you can really kind of get to see it and not say anything about the lighting. And off. One of the things I like to do just to tidy up my brows after I've done is to take the brush I've applied my concealer with and just go underneath the brows to really create a kind of sharper brow line, just because I don't have many brow hairs, and then I'll kind of blend it in with my finger just to create a crisper shape. So I'm really happy with the coverage for this and how little it creased. It didn't get cakey, the powder hasn't settled in the fine lines too much. Obviously it's not a miracle cure, it's not going to hide the fine lines and wrinkles, but what I don't want it to do is exacerbate them. So I feel like this has done a really good job of just naturally brightening without looking too heavy. Okay, I am finishing up work for the day. I just wanted to check in with you and show you how the Makeup Forever HD Skin Concealer did. It's done really, really well. It hasn't creased, it hasn't worn out. I think it's a really lovely natural concealer that's so easy to work with. If you're looking for fuller coverage though, this might not be the one. I'm going to review two concealers today, one on one side, one on the other. A, it'll make this video quicker, and B, I think it might actually be a better way to compare them side by side because we can see how they apply, how luminous or matte they are, the color, and then how long they actually wear for. So the first one I'm going to do is the FauxFilter Luminous Matte. Now normally I would go for a more luminous concealer. I don't know if matte's the most flattering on me, but we're going to give it a go. It comes in 29 shades, it is fragrance free, and I just have 3 to play around with today. So I'm just going to use the lightest one, which is Coconut Flakes 2.7N. They say it's buildable and blendable. I feel like most concealers are if you're applying them correctly. It's also supposed to be water, sweat, and transfer resistance. I'm not going to see if it's waterproof for you, but I will see how well it transfers. Maybe we'll get a tissue and do a blot test. And to make this concealer review as fair as possible, I have done the same skincare prep every single time. Same serum, moisturizer, eye cream, so it's totally fair. It's not like one's going to peel and one won't. And then I'm applying it the same way every time as well, going in with my little brush and then my damp beauty blender and setting with pressed powder. I just feel like I would always wear pressed powder on concealer anyway, so I feel like it is fair as long as I'm using it on all of them to test them that way. My normal concealer is the Dior Skin Corrector in 0N, so it'll be fun if one of these actually, ooh, it's all dripping. One of them actually replaces this, but the shade I have in this in 0N, which is quite a bit lighter than this. What I'm liking about this color is it does look, I've got to remember just to do one eye because I'm going to go into autopilot, but do both, aren't I? It is a really lovely shade. It's not too pink, it's not too yellow. So I feel like it is a very true neutral. So I buff my concealer in for ages just because I'd rather build it slowly and not have it settle in my creases as little as possible. So that's with one coat. Let's do a couple more. There we go. Now we're getting some nice coverage. The first time it was a little bit too light. I think the sponge was picking up more than it was putting down. But now we're getting some really lovely brightening, and it doesn't actually feel that matte. It actually feels quite luminous. I really like the coverage I'm getting from this one. It is a little harder to blend. The first kind of application started to separate a little bit. Now it's going on nicely. I did do the whole eye area as well as the underneath. So now let me clean up my brushes and my sponge and we'll go in and do the other side. The other side I'm going to use Tower 28. Now I've never even heard of this one, and it is a serum concealer. So I like that it has kind of a treatment in there, not just color coverage. The older I've got, the more I've got into products that have skincare as well. We're taking a little break as Zorro came in to say hi. He was chirping at me. So I'm going to give him some loving and then we'll go and do the other eye. All of these concealers, literally every single one says buildable and blendable. So both of them say that. This one offers 14-hour crease-proof wear. This one doesn't say how long the wear is, but it does say it's safe for sensitive skin. This one doesn't. So if you have sensitive skin, it might be worth checking out Tower 28 Swipe Serum Concealer. This one is also going to be a waterproof one, and this is not. This one says medium coverage. This one I think you can get pretty full coverage from. So just a quick side-by-side comparison of these two. This one I have 4 different colors in. I'm going to go in with the lightest shade on this one, which is a 2.0 BU. This comes in 20 shades, 29 shades. Honestly, I feel like you don't need a lot of different shades really from concealer. For me, I always just go in with the lightest, and I still don't feel like I get panda eyes. This is going to be your 2.0 on here. Let me just show you right next to this one if it doesn't all spill everywhere. It's quite a lot lighter than the FauxFilter, and it's also quite a lot pinker. I tend to not like pink tones on my face because it's already got enough pink tones, but we'll see. Sorry, Zorro's just popped down with me. He's gonna watch me do my makeup, bless him. So my main discoloration, like I talked about the others, oh, that is really bright compared to the other one. I kind of want to just do side by side now so you can see the difference in colors. Very, very bright. Let me just clean off the brush and dip back into the other one. I'm just going to put it on raw like that so you can see the color difference. This one is a lot more of a yellow neutral undertone. This one is a lot lighter and it has a slightly pinker undertone. Okay, now I need to get 2 beauty blenders on the go. Let me do that side with this one. Just dab that all in. And then we'll go in on the other side with a different beauty blender. I mean, if you want brightening, this is definitely brightening, but I feel like it's quite a thick application from the get-go. I feel like it might actually be making the blues look worse right now. Let me do another couple of coats, because now we have done like 3 coats on that side. Let's even it out. Straight away with the application, they're both supposed to be hydrating concealers. I actually find the FauxFilter more hydrating than the other one. The other one, Tower 28, dried down a lot quicker. But in saying that, I feel like sometimes the more hydrating it is, the more it creases. It won't dry down. So right away, I'm feeling like the FauxFilter is creasing a lot more than the other one does. I also feel like I got more coverage. It says medium, but I did 2 applications on this side, 3 on the other. And I feel like I've got now an even application. So I feel like slightly less product is needed when you're using the Tower 28 to the FauxFilter. I'm just gonna come in really nice and close for you. Okay, I'm going to finish my makeup off and see how the powder sits on top of them. Okay, it's literally only been a few seconds. All I started doing was my eyeshadow, and this one has already creased way worse than this one. So definitely so far the Tower 28 is creasing less. So a final verdict, I don't actually love either of them. I love how brightening they are, but they are definitely not for mature skin. So I would say avoid FauxFilter, which I had such high hopes for if you have more mature skin, because it settles in the fine lines very, very badly. And it just feels quite drying. It doesn't feel hydrating. Like I said in the beginning, it felt really hydrating and creamy, and it just dried down, it caked. I just don't like this finish. I'm gonna get really close to you, sorry. I just really want you to see how bad that's settling in there. And then the other one, the Tower 28, I do like a lot more than the other one. It doesn't feel hydrating either. So I wouldn't say either of these are hydrating skincare products. They're not terrible. I think if you've got youthful skin, they're gonna be lovely and brightening. But for me, these definitely aren't my favorite. Maybe Tower 28, but definitely not the FauxFilter. I've let these do the 8-hour wear test, and honestly, I'm not impressed with either of them. From a distance, they look okay. But when I come in, they've started to not only really crease, but fade out and separate. That's just not a good look. I feel like they've creased and separated and dried out a lot more than a lot of the other ones we've tried, and they're just not hydrating whatsoever. So these 2 are fails for me. Okay, so today we are doing a Rare Beauty Liquid Touch Brightening Concealer, and I have a few different shades on the back to play around with. And then on the other side, I'm going to use my Dior Skin Correct, which is my favorite concealer right now. It's the one I use every day. So I'm going to compare them side by side. So this one does say it's moisturizing and lightweight, so we'll see if it actually is, because the other 2 I tried that said they were moisturizing were actually very drying. It also claims to be crease resistant, so that is something I will definitely be trying. Looking at the colors, I think the 160C is going to be too pinky for me, so I'm going to go in with the 180W, which is their warmer shade. It just looks a lot more neutral to me. Comparing that to my Dior, it's hard to see in this lighting, it looks very, very similar. It's actually making my Dior look quite pinky. This one looks like it might actually be a very good color match for me, especially while I'm tan. And I do like this color. This color is really lovely. So straight away, I feel like the color match was good, considering how few colors there were to choose from. I'm gonna go in with a second round, and I might do a little bit on the nose as well, right there. So the application on this one was absolutely beautiful. It didn't crease like yesterday's. Even on the lid, you can see that's gone on really nicely. So application, great. Let's see how it goes. Let's apply the Dior on the other side. Clean off the brushes. Obviously, you can swipe this straight on. I explained before, the reason I do this is to have less coverage, just because I feel like less is more on more mature skin, because otherwise it just settles into all those creases. Not the look we are going for. And I find the Dior quite full coverage. I mean, I feel like it's given as much as the other eye, just with one coat, although I might put a bit extra on to be fair. So that is one coat. I'll go in and do a second just to be fair. And I tend to be lighter on my second coat and just focus on the areas where there's more discoloration, just so there's not a load of product buildup and less chances of it creasing. With that second application, I feel like the color looks very similar on both sides. The coverage seems very, very similar, but when I come in close, you'll see this side has already started to crease. The Dior hasn't. So for me so far, the Dior has been best at not creasing. But let me buff it out some more, let me powder it, and then we'll kind of see how it is after all of the finishing touches. Okay, so as much as the Rare Beauty did start to crease in the beginning, once I powdered it down, I feel now like it looks very, very similar to the Dior concealer. So if I come in close, They're both giving very, very similar coverage, similar colors, and creasing about the same amount. What I do feel is they're both moisturizing. Yesterday, the moisturizing ones were actually drying. These aren't separating, they're not drying out, they're creating a really lovely, even coverage. So we'll see how they go throughout the day. Okay, wear test for the end of the day. From a distance, they both look like they've lasted really well. And honestly, there's not much in it. I feel like the Rare Beauty and the Dior are very, very equal. If anything, I will still say though that the Dior has creased the least and it still feels the most hydrating and comfortable. So the Dior is still my winner of the concealers, but we have 2 more to go. On to our final 2. Now I didn't do a drugstore brand so far or a dollar store brand, so I thought I would do E.L.F 16-hour camo concealer just because I wanted to do something more affordable for you. Now when I say dollar store or drugstore buys now, even this I think was $7.99, $7. There's nothing you can get for $1 anymore, to be fair, can you? And the other one I'm really excited to try is Natasha Denona. Now there's a guy on TikTok I absolutely adore, the makeup artist, so I wanted to try this because this came out as his top rated concealer. He had it down to this and the Dior VS Skin that I showed you before, that is my favorite right now. So they have so many different shades. I did a Y2, so I'm not sure how good this color will be for me, but it is supposed to be a hydrating and brightening crease free concealer. And I say all of these say crease free, but they really, really are hard to find one that doesn't crease at all and settle in those fine lines. But this is supposed to be a crease proof serum concealer, so the fact that it has a serum in there might be better. What else can I tell you about this? Increases skin hydration up to 19 hours wear, which is nice. This is going to be a 16-hour wear, so it's supposed to be more long wearing, but again, I think a lot of that is how you set it anyway. The other thing about this, it's supposed to boost collagen synthesis for firmer and luminous skin, cell detoxification, anti-aging, medium buildable coverage. So it does sound like it's going to be good for mature skin. But like I said, we will see. Versus the E.L.F 16-hour camo concealer. What color did I get? Light beige, beige clair. And this one camouflages dark circles and blemishes for up to 16 hours with a matte finish. Now I'm not sure about matte finishes on me. I do find like matte finishes on more mature skin, it's just not the most flattering. I do prefer a luminous concealer. However, if you prefer a matte finish, you might prefer E.L.F. So I'm going to tell you my personal preference on them, but when you're listening to this, don't go just off of me, go off of your own personal skin concerns as well. And again, this one says crease resistant too, so we're going to put E.L.F on the right side, same application way as all of the others. Now this has an oversized applicator, which I'm not mad about. I mean, if you want full coverage and you're just whacking it on, you can cover a lot of area with that. Almost looks a bit of a greeny tint to that. I don't know how good this is going to be on me, but we will see. So I am not going to use this oversized applicator. We're just going to dab a little bit on. Oh, actually the color's pretty good match. That's not bad at all. And that is pretty full coverage. So if you're looking for a really full coverage matte concealer, this might be really good. I think back in my show days, I think I'd have loved this for stage makeup. Okay, so one coat hasn't really done a lot. It did brighten the darker circles right in there. Not a ton, so I'm gonna go back and do a second coat, like I have done with most of these concealers, to be fair, but I tend to start light and build up because it's easier to add than it is to take away, that's for sure. First impressions, really good. Brightening, it blended out really well. It hasn't creased too badly underneath. It did crease a little bit there that I just smudged out a little bit, but that's a really good color match as well. And it doesn't feel too drying. You know, some mattes, it just feels quite drying and kind of chalky. This doesn't. It didn't feel bad at all going on. So let's try the Natasha Denona on the other side. Like I said, it's a Hy-Glam concealer and I'm very excited to try this one because I do trust Spencer, the makeup artist I was talking about before. He's just fun to watch. If you don't follow him, this is actually a really pretty tube. If you don't follow him on TikTok, go give him a follow. He gives so many good makeup tips. Let me just show you the 2 shades side by side. They are quite similar. They're both in that very bright shade, but I like a bright under eye because I do have those dark circles. So, oh, look at that wand. That is so much daintier than the E.L.F. But then look at the price difference. So you do get what you pay for a lot of the time. So I feel like that's just gonna be, even if you wanted to use that directly, that's going to be a lot easier to work with. I might have got too yellow a shade, but we will see. I'd rather it was too yellow than too pink with my skin tones because I have quite a lot of redness anyway. Oh, a little goes a long way. I used too much. That is, wow. Okay, you're gonna get a lot of use out of this because that is very brightening. A little goes a long way. Wow. Okay, did not need to use that much. And at the moment it looks almost too bright for my skin, but once all the powder's on and the bronzer and everything else, I think that's going to be really good. So color-wise and coverage, I feel like they're very, very similar color-wise once they're on. I feel like the E.L.F, even though it said full coverage, gave less coverage than the Natasha Denona, which I just put a tiny bit on and it seemed to do full coverage straight away. So really loving that about it. If I come in, are either of them starting to crease yet? Yes. The E.L.F is already creasing. I did put it on slightly before the other one though, didn't I? So it has been on longer and we haven't baked either of them yet. But if you were looking from a distance, I would say they look very, very similar. When you start to get up close, I am liking how much more luminous. Can you see if I turn that? How much more luminous it is? It's reflecting all the lights. It looks quite glowy. This one is obviously a lot more matte, but it did say it was matte. And this one is creasing and this one isn't creasing so much. Let me finish it all off and we'll see how much more they've creased and how they're looking. Okay, so a couple of thoughts on the E.L.F and Natasha Denona concealers. So if you want a budget buy, if you have more youthful skin, or if you're not so worried about what it looks like really close up, if you're okay with just at a distance, the E.L.F will do you fine. If you care more about how it looks from a distance and close up, you can really see the difference with the Natasha Denona. So on the E.L.F, it doesn't matter if I smile, they're always gonna go in the fine lines. When you smile, I just have fine lines. So let me not smile. You can see how it's creased a lot more underneath on this side than on that side, but I am coming up super close to you. From a distance, I don't think it matters so much. And I think color-wise, they both do a brilliant job of brightening and concealing. It just really, I think, depends on your skin type and how far away the things you are doing. So for me, I do a lot of filming where there's no filter. I do a lot of photography. I do a lot of like up close stuff with you guys. I'm like, hi. Versus maybe if I was working in an office or doing a school run or going to the grocery store, this would be fine to throw on. Or if you have more youthful skin, or if you have oily skin, and if you have drier skin or more mature skin than Natasha Denona. So it really depends on budget and your skin type. So that's why the Natasha Denona is the winner for me out of these two. So I'm still in my PJs. I'm gonna get dressed in a minute. So now that I have it down to my top two after trying all of these 10 concealers, I'm going to review the top two to see if I have an overall winner. So far, the top two are going to be the Natasha Denona Hy-Glam Concealer and the Dior Forever Skin Concealer. Those two, I want to see how they play side by side. I will also come back and show you this later in the day and see how they've done on the wear test. Okay, end of the day wear test. So the E.L.F has creased all the way down to here. Can you see what I mean? It's quite drying in here. Versus Natasha, literally not creasing at all. And even around the nose, it started to separate. Remember I brought the concealer down here? It separated, it hasn't there. So wearability test, the E.L.F does not last as well as Natasha Denona. So Natasha Denona and Dior are going to be the two going through to my finals. I'm gonna test to see which is the best of these concealers. We are on to my favorite two concealers, but I just wanted to show you quickly how I've been prepping my skin for each of these. So I've been starting with a 111 Skin Black Diamond Serum. This I don't think is worth the money, but I'm using it up and it's the one I have. So I'm being consistent and making sure, like I said, we prepped all of these concealers the exact same way. And then I have been mixing my One Skin SPF with a couple of drops of the Osmosis Nourish Facial Oil. I kind of like to go heavier with my hydrating ingredients in the winter than I would normally in the summer. And I just feel like SPF on its own isn't hydrating enough. I blend the SPF with the face oil, rather than doing one and then the other, because otherwise this SPF is very hard to get to go in. It leaves quite a white mask. Brilliant SPF, but it does leave that white mask. So let me show you the top two concealers we got it down to as my absolute favorites. The other thing I wanted to share with you is when I went out last night with the E.L.F concealer on one eye and the Natasha Denona on the other, I was with 3 people at dinner and I asked them which eye looked better. Now, bearing in mind, yes, it was pretty low lit. It was a nice evening dinner, but they all said the E.L.F looked better than the Natasha Denona, which was kind of shocking to me because if you remember earlier in the day, when I applied it in the morning, when I went back and showed you it later in the day, I was very much sold on the Natasha Denona. So if you are looking for a budget concealer and aren't so worried about close up, because I mean, how many people get this close to you anyway? That's what my friends were saying. Like, I know what you're saying, Eve, but how often do people see you that close up? From a distance, we think the E.L.F looks better. It could be the overhead lighting casting shadows, But I think that's going to be a really good full coverage for a night out where it's not bright daylight. So if you want to save some money, definitely check out the E.L.F versus Natasha Denona or the Dior. I'll link the foundation I use in the description below as well, because there's a couple I really, really like. Again, I've tried lots and lots and lots of them, but these are the two I really, really love. Okay, so we're going to do the Dior Forever Skin on one, Natasha Denona on the other, and go from there. And I'm going to apply them kind of at the same time. So it's the Dior 0N on the right eye. And then the Natasha Denona, we're going to, actually I'm just going to use the applicator on this one because it is so lovely and dainty, on the left eye. Is that about the same amount? No, I used more of the Natasha, so let me just go in, add a bit more of the Dior to be fair. And as you can see, the Dior I use is, I'm just literally going to try and match up the dots pretty much exactly. Go, that's probably closer. As you can see, the colors are very, very different. So the Dior is a lot pinker, a lot brighter. The Natasha Denona is a lot more yellow and slightly darker, but that's on me. There are so many different shades in both of these concealers. You can find one that's a really good match. My skin color is always changing, so I kind of need to have a couple on hand because I self-tan so much. So I have days where I'm very, very tan, or orange if I've overdone it. And there are days where I am a lot paler. I'm naturally very, very pale. Okay, let me wash the beauty sponge really thoroughly. Do you see what I mean? This is why I love the Dior. It's literally just so hydrating, so luminous. I kind of wish I didn't have to powder things down, because when you powder down the concealers, they do tend to lose a lot of their luminosity. But otherwise they just crease, don't they? So, okay, the Natasha Denona is a lot thicker. So use a lot less than I did. I was just trying to really match them up. So Natasha Denona, you can use less, so it'll probably last you longer. And because I feel like it's a lot thicker than the Dior, you're probably going to get more instant coverage versus building up layers. But I don't think I really need to build up layers on either of them. So that's a quick look at the Dior versus Natasha Denona first application. And now that they're on, I really feel like the colors don't look as different anymore. Once you start to blend them in, they are very, very similar. They're kind of giving a similar amount of luminosity. They're giving a similar amount of coverage. They're creasing pretty much equally. So I think it might come down to just if you have a favorite brand. If you're already earning points with Dior Beauty on their loyalty program, you might want to keep spending money with Dior. If you're collecting Sephora points, you might want to buy the Natasha Denona. Actually, you can buy the Dior at Sephora as well. So it just depends where your loyalty program is and if you have a preference. Now, the biggest reason for me wanting to switch from the Dior to the Natasha Denona is Natasha Denona is cruelty-free. Dior is not. So if I can get away from Dior, sorry Dior, I love you as a company. I don't like that your products aren't cruelty-free. Natasha Denona is. So that is a huge selling point for me. A couple more tips for making sure your concealer doesn't crease is once it starts creasing before you've set it, is to buff out those creases so you're not setting in the creases. Then when you pick up your powder on your sponge, sorry if you already know this, I'm just trying to be really thorough, is to get rid of all the excess on there. So again, you're not using too much product on there, because otherwise it's just going to create like a cakey texture. One, if you put it on wet, it's obviously going to create like a wet cake texture before it's baked, and that's going to crease. And two, even if it is dry, if you use too much, it's too much product, it's really going to, and that's all I do is when I'm going around everything, is just to kind of bounce it really quickly off. I'm not putting a ton of product on my face. I didn't want to do a lot of makeup today because I'm just at home taking down the Christmas decorations. But another quick tip I have is if you see it starting to crease under here or getting excess product, take a little Q-tip and just gently take it out rather than putting more powder on and buffing it in, take it off, so that there's just not excess product piling up anywhere. Okay, so after powder and everything, again, I think it's a very, very similar. I still think I might prefer the Natasha Denona, not just because I know it's cruelty-free now, but I think it's just doing a lot better a job at brightening than the Dior is. So let's see how this wears. Here we are with the end of day wear test. This is the Dior, this is Natasha Denona. Now, I think they look literally identical. They could be the same concealer, especially from a distance. The color looks the same, the creasing looks the same, the coverage, everything, the feel of them. But when I come in closer, I really, really scrutinize it. I would say the Dior has creased slightly more. underneath, just even lower down. Can you see all the way down to there? Versus Natasha not doing so much. It's just doing a tiny bit of creasing. Not even really creasing, it's just going in the fine lines, which it's going to do. It's not going to blow them out. It's not going to make them invisible. So I think they've both done really well at not creasing, at the color staying there, and all the rest of it. But which is my ultimate winner? After reviewing all 10 concealers, these are my top 3 picks. Now, the reason I haven't said best concealer is because the best concealer for one person is not the same as the best concealer for another person, because we all have different skin types, different skin concerns, and different preferences on coverage. So these are my top 3, and you can choose which one's best for you based on how I'm kind of describing them to you. So when I tried the E.L.F. next to the Natasha Denona, I personally preferred the Natasha Denona because I was looking at it in daylight. I was scrutinizing myself up close in a mirror. But when we went out for dinner that night, we went out with another couple, and I had one on one eye and one on the other, and I asked them which they thought was better, and everyone said the E.L.F. So it could have been because overhead lighting was creating a shadow. It could have been because it was darker. If it's for a night out, if you have younger skin, if you have very dark circles you want to conceal, definitely check out E.L.F. It's also a really good budget find. So great thicker consistency if you're not worried about it creasing so much, because it does definitely emphasize fine lines and wrinkles more than the others, at least when you're up close or in bright daylight. E.L.F. is going to be great for you. Avoid if you have kind of more mature skin or want less coverage. Next up, these two, they literally seem like the same formula. The Natasha Denona and the Dior are so similar, both in how they apply, how buildable they are, the texture, the luminosity, the coverage, how long they wear for, how much they crease or how little they crease. They are so similar. I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. If you did my makeup one eye with one and one with the other, I wouldn't know you used different makeup on me. So I think the differentiating factor for this, for me, is Natasha Denona is cruelty-free, Dior is not. So if cruelty-free is a big concern to you, I would definitely suggest checking out Natasha Denona. If you don't care, or maybe you're part of the Dior loyalty program, maybe do the Dior Forever Skin. Both of them are on Sephora if you collect Sephora points, so not much difference there. Honestly, the coverage on them is great. These two, I would say, are the best for mature skin. If you're worried about it settling into the fine lines more, none of these really crease. I would just say the E.L.F. emphasize the fine lines more versus these two doing a pretty good job at being more flattering. They didn't crease. They lasted about the same amount of time. Both lovely products. If you care about the wand, I don't apply my makeup with a wand, so it wasn't a big factor to me. I like to apply my concealer with a brush, just so I can build the coverage more easily. Oh, I just got up my finger. But as you can see, the Natasha Denona is a lot daintier. That was obviously a lot chunkier. So that's my thoughts on these. I'm going to switch from Dior to Natasha Denona just because I really like that cruelty-free aspect. Anyway, I'm going to link all 10 concealers in the description below in case one of my top 3 isn't one of the ones you like the sound of the best. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a quick thumbs up and subscribe.